Hello, it's me, Zombie Mouse. Um, I have some stuff to talk about. So, on YouTube, I posted this poll and I got a ton of votes. And I asked what kind of content people wanted me to make on my YouTube channel. So, I looked at it and I was like, okay, I should make more video game stuff. And I haven't talked about 26 Letter Publishing or my role playing games in a long time. So let this be the formal announcement. SCP The Tabletop Role Playing Game 2nd Edition is coming, and it's going to be $0 on DriveThruRPG. It's going to come out later this summer, late summer, I'm thinking, and I'd like to talk about it. But first, a word from our sponsor. I don't have a sponsor. I'm Zombie Mouse. I'm 45 years old. I know, I don't look it, right? But I've been making role-playing games since I was like in my early teens. I've been playing RPGs since the early 90s, mid 2000s, early 2000s, whatever. I played Vampire, GURPS, Shadowrun, all the old school stuff. Well, not all the old school stuff. I played Paranoia. I'm not going to list all the games I played. I played a lot. I think my first game was Car Wars, and I played a lot of GURPS. But I never played Dungeons and Dragons. Not once. I played Baldur's Gate, if that counts. But never played D&D. I played a D20 system, the Star Wars D20 system. And that's probably the closest I've gotten to a D20. Very early on, I wanted to make role-playing games because as I read a lot of the games, their language was too flowery and the dice mechanics and how to play was like buried amongst paragraphs and paragraphs of stuff that don't tell you how to play. And I was like, this is so frustrating, I'm just going to make my own game. The first game I made was called Earth No More. It was a D100 system. It was very rudimentary, but I mean, I was like 13, give me a break. Then I made a game called That One Egyptian Game. I think I played it once. It was just a game where you played an Egyptian person back in Egyptian times. I don't know, whatever. And then I made, I wanted to play the Legend of Zelda role-playing game, so I made a system, and I was like, I'm going to publish this someday. I was young and naive. I didn't know anything about Nintendo back then. I remember I sent an email to Dan Olson, and I was like, hey, I'm trying to make a Zelda role-playing game. Can you help? And he's like, it's probably not going to happen, but good luck. I think he said something about he used to play, what's that space game? Old school space game. I can't think of the name of it. He replied, said no, don't do it. So I was like, okay. And I did it anyways. I made a fully fleshed out Legend of Zelda RPG. Me and my friends played it. We had a blast. Still a good system. And then my friend Shane and I decided to make a tabletop RPG based off of Resident Evil. And it's a great system. It still holds up today. I hope someday I can publish it. The only thing I would change about it is probably the way it looks, because it was done in Microsoft Word. This was before I learned how to do InDesign. And then I started making, what was my first game I made in InDesign? I made a game called, I think it was Edge of Ether, and I never published it. I wanted to go big, so I started making this game called Edge of Ether. It uses what I call the buy die system, and that's what I use pretty much in all my games going forward. But I got to a point where I was like, I'm putting too much into this game. Edge of Ether was a game based off of, I wanted to have the best of both worlds. It was a RPG where like there was a fantasy universe that was parallel to Earth's realm, and all of human beliefs manifested into this realm. and it was based off of like philosophies that I kind of sort of believed in at the time. But that's neither here nor there either. Anyways, after that, I made a game called Para, and it stood for Paranormal Abnormality Reconnaissance Agency. And my friends and I played that. I had a campaign that lasted, I think, 4 or 5 years, and that's a whole other video. That was a really great campaign. But then I was like, you know what, I actually want to publish something. So I created a tabletop RPG, very tiny, I think it was like 100 pages, called Creepypasta, the tabletop role-playing game. Posted it to Drive-Thru, and I'm not proud of it, but it used the buy-a-die system. Actually, if you want to check it out, it's on Drive-Thru right now. If you search Creepypasta or 26 Letter Publishing, as of summer this year, I'm taking it off the market because it's a relic of my past now. I still love it. Still a good system. It has a great sanity mechanic, but I don't want my brand associated with that anymore because it's just kind of sloppy. But then I moved forward and I made a game called Spaceship Architect, which I still think is a really good system. I hope someday I can, I don't know, do something more with it. Sci-fi based RPG. I try to make it look as alien as possible inside the core book. The page numbers are like in this alien language kind of. But it uses a card system where you can create your own custom spaceship, and once you do, you can actually have a map of your spaceship that you can have your characters go around in. I'm really proud of that game. It didn't take off. I didn't expect it to. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to make a role-playing game based off of SCP. In 2021, I launched a Kickstarter for it with a goal of $2,000. I ended up getting $30,000, and I didn't expect it to blow up that much. I mean, I probably should have, but at the time I was just like, this is great, okay. Barely broke even with all the sales and everything, all the costs associated with the Kickstarter. Kickstarter is great for promotions and stuff, but it's expensive, and I think I got really lucky. I had to pay like $200 out of pocket in order to fulfill all the backers after all the artwork and everything, and I couldn't do signed copies. But anyways, moving forward, that blew up for a little while. I think I still get sales every so often. I think I sold like a book a month maybe. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna publish Para, that game I was talking about, the game that I like. This actually is an RPG that was more similar to SCP before SCP came out, which is why the system translated so easily to it. And this was also sort of a stepping stone into what is on the screen right now, because Para had something called background points and aspects. No, I can't see it, but it helped me channel what is on your screen right now, SCP the Tabletop RPG 2nd Edition. And I'm going to talk about that now, finally. First off, let me talk about the differences of SCP, the tabletop role-playing game, with or 2nd Edition with other RPGs. Real quick, character sheet's been totally changed. It's a whole new system. The dice mechanics from 1st Edition have carried over to some extent, but right now this is free. I'm giving it away on my Discord. I posted a Google Drive link on my Twitter and my Facebook, and you can download this right now and play. You can play it. There's a couple. The SCP stats aren't available. NPC stats aren't available. That's all coming, but it's 100% playable right now. And I would like to talk about what makes this book special compared to every other tabletop role-playing game. But first, before I do that, I want to quickly dive into the differences between First Edition and Second Edition. If you've played First Edition, this section of the video is for you. If you haven't played First Edition, you can skip it. I'm going to quickly go through what is different between First Edition and Second Edition. With Second Edition, the attribute dice have been reworked, as you can see on this character sheet. The dice are no longer little rectangles that you fill in. They are now these icons. You can actually click them on the character sheet to fill them in. Each attribute is represented by dice. Right now I have 2 dice in health, which means my health rating would be 2. And I can either buy more dice by filling in, columns to the right, or you can upgrade those dice. Like this D6 could be upgraded to a D8 or a D10. You cannot skip. You have to go, from bottom to top. Okay, all right. So yeah, you could do this. You could buy that, and then buy that. You could buy this, then this. You just couldn't suddenly jump up here to that. You have to go either left to right or bottom to top. Just loves doing that. So that's the first difference. It's essentially the same mechanic as First Edition, because you're still taking 4 dice or less, and you are taking the top 2. Now with First Edition, if you rolled a 1 negated, I got rid of that. And if a die exploded, which is like if you get a 6 on a D6 or 8 on a D8, in First Edition you would get 2 dice of the higher type. Now you only get 1. That's it. That's the only change for attribute dice. There's no more decimal places. First Edition, I took a lot of feedback from people. I got a ton of feedback. It had mixed reviews, and in a way that's actually better than having positive reviews across the board, because now I know exactly what I need to improve. And I got rid of the decimal places, and it has been replaced with multipliers. You can have a skill multiplier of up to 2 or times 3. And what that means is if you multiply your skill by that level. So if you have a skill of 3 and you have a multiplier of 3, you get a plus 9 to your dice roll. So experience has been reworked. Instead of you getting X number of points that you can purchase with X costs, and you have to do all this math, it's been simplified so that at the end of every session you get a flat bonus. You get this many extra dice to fill in. Like with you could have like 3 every session. You get to fill in 3 dice. Boom, boom, boom. Like that's quite a bit of improvement, and you improve really quickly that way. And that's what I've always wanted. I wanted a game where you're constantly improving, because a lot of tabletop RPGs, I remember back in the day, I used to play Vampire, and you would get like 2 to 3 experience, maybe less per session. And some of the best abilities cost like 8, so you'd have to like save up, and it would be like 4 sessions before you can buy something you really want. And you have to save up, and it was so excruciating. And I know I haven't played D&D, but I know that you get experience, and you have to keep grinding and grinding until you go up a level. And then when you get up a level, you get like a +2 to hit when you're behind an enemy on a full moon, and that's like the only ability you get, or you get a +1 to a skill, and it's like, no, I want people to improve quite a bit. It helps you to know, like, while you're role playing, crap, I didn't put any points into charisma, or I'm really messed up on my dexterity. I messed up during character creation. I didn't min-max correctly. I want to improve this area that I'm lacking, and you can do that. You should be able to fill in that gap. Anyways, that was my philosophy, and that's the way I enjoy making my games, so that you can improve quickly, you can improve constantly, but also there's a balance so that you're not dishing out thousands of damage on session 3. So I crafted this system, hopefully that is accomplished. Another thing in First Edition is you had a credit system where every so often you would get paid, and The SCP Foundation has nearly unlimited resources, so it didn't make any sense to have players get credits to get weapons, which are essential to their mission. So there's no more credit system. Players can just have anything they want. And it's balanced because of this uniform system that I will get into later. Security levels have been reworked. In first edition, security levels were a mechanic that locked players out of certain parts of the book and locked them away from getting better gear. I got rid of that because security levels in an SCP setting should be a narrative mechanic, not a system mechanic. And finally, disruption classes are introduced. Now I'm going to get into disruption classes later, but that is the main differences between first edition and second edition. Now I'm going to move on to what makes this game different than every other role-playing game and why you should give it a chance. But before I do that, I'd like to read this little blurb here. Why SCP-2E? As a horror tabletop RPG, SCP-2E may seem like the combat mechanics and character customization are missing the mark. After all, if everybody's going to die a gruesome death, what is the point of any of it? Well, that's up to the director. The dice system is simple enough, and character creation can be as fast as you desire. If you want to play a game where you're pitted up against elder gods and the unstoppable, unkillable monsters, then that's a perfectly fine storyline to go with. There's so much more to the SCP universe, however, that only a system which aims to encompass all possibilities would do the SCP Wiki justice. The SCP Wiki has an unfathomable amount of stories to tell, unfathomable levels of power of SCPs. So you have to make a system that's going to, if you want to make a system that's going to not pigeonhole the director or GM or whatever you want to call it into a specific storyline. If you want to give them complete creative freedom to make the story that they want to tell, then you have to make a role-playing game system that encompasses all of it. It was one of the criticisms of first edition is that it seemed to focus on combat mechanics and stuff when, I mean, you're just going to die to 096 instantly, so why are you bothering rolling dice? I mean, you can do any type of story you want. A lot of players are going to be fighting against Chaos Insurgency or lesser powerful SCPs. You can do anything in this game. You can have a smaller story where you're fighting other GOIs, or you can have a grand story like the cover of the book where your players are pitted up against the Scarlet King. By the way, I thought this cover art was great. The 4 characters are not a parody, but a continuation of first edition's cover. These are the same 4 characters from the first edition cover. The artist named Jamie Maw, he did both cover arts for the games, and he's great. He does amazing work, and he did the cover for this one. That was one of the first things I commissioned because I knew I needed a cover to kind of help inspire and push me forward. But I just love this cover art. They're going up against the Scarlet King. This is going to be a TPK for sure, but I love it. Anyways, real quick, here's the Discord link. Oh, crap. Okay, well, that's the Discord link. To my Discord, you can get the latest version of the beta copy here. As you can see, this is the edition as of February 16th of this year. I'm constantly updating it, and I have about 18 steps left before I am done with the book. So, what makes this role-playing game different than all the rest? I'm going to get into that, and then I'm going to end the stream and start another one so that I can edit these in chunks. So the first thing that is different about this game that sets it apart from other RPGs is there's something called disruption classes. Now, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of it right now. I'm just going to kind of scroll to it and show what it looks like. But all PCs, when they make their character, if they're using an advanced character creation method, can choose between one of 5 disruption classes. Disruption classes determine how powerful you start the game and how much experience you get at the end of each session. Again, I haven't played D&D, but you know how you roll random attributes at the beginning and you slot those numbers into your attributes? It makes an offset and balance so that it's a little bit more realistic, where some characters are more powerful, some characters are weaker. This kind of gives that aspect in control of the players. So if you want to start off dark, I have these numbers that represent, the left number represents how powerful you start, and the right number represents how powerful you'll become, basically. Dark class starts off extremely weak. They get to fill in a total of 3 dice during character creation, so it's 1, 2, 3, and you're done. That's nothing. So you're gonna start off pretty weak. Whereas Amida starts off with a bigger number, 17 plus 17 plus 14. It's a lot. But with Amida, you're not getting any experience. Every session that goes by, you don't get any improvement. Whereas Dark, you get a ton. And then there's these 3 levels in between, and it's kind of like your gradient. You want to go right in the middle, you can choose Connect. You get 5, 5, and 3, and then you get every session you get 1 physical token, 1 mental token, and plus 3 skill points. It goes deeper into that. I won't get into that now, but that is a very basic description of what sets this game apart from other ones. Why does it do that? Why am I doing this? Why would you have disruption classes? This is weird. It's because a lot of players want to play as SCPs, or characters with anomalous abilities, reality benders. They want to have thaumaturgy. And some want to start off as a D class. How can you balance that? How can you balance a system where players want to have every different type of power level under the sun? Well, under which sun? Is it SCP-001 when day breaks? I'm sorry, that was bad. So this system allows you to create any character you can imagine. And if you don't want to start off with cybernetic arms and anomalous abilities, you can start off as just a regular scientist, or a anomalous expert, containment specialist. You can play anything you want, and it will balance out over time. Now, that being said, it's up to the director. The entire director chapter talks about how you shouldn't allow your players to just pick any one of these. You should come up with a story and then decide what level of disruption classes you want to allow in your campaign. But in general, yeah, if a director wanted you to, it just said play any disruption class you want. You have so many options. It's mind-boggling. The next thing that is unique about this tabletop RPG system is there's 3 different forms of character creation. You can have a pre-made character. There's going to be a list of 25 different pre-made characters in a separate PDF that comes along with the book. And you can choose from any one of them, rename them. You can give them different items. You can give them different outfits. And you're ready to roll. It takes you... ready to roll, get it? It takes you less than a minute. You copy it over to your sheet, or you can just print it out and you're done. You're ready to go. There's fast character creation, which is done in 4 steps. Choose your character info, which is your name, your security level. It's just filling in your basic information. Then you choose a character class. There's 9 to choose from. Let me just skip over to that real quick. There's 9 character classes. There's the Anomaly Expert, D class, the Heavy, which is awaiting art, Medic, which is awaiting art, Modern Ninja, which is like a melee specialist, the Scientist, the Scout, the Soldier, which is awaiting art, the Spy, and that's all of them. There's 9 classes. So you choose your character class. Each character class gives you a set of skills and maybe some other types of buffs. I think the Heavy gives you like extra hit points, and you're done. You've chosen a class. That's step 2. Step 3 is you spend attribute tokens. Remember when I was talking about filling in these dice? Well, for fast character creation, you get 10. You can put fill these in anywhere you want. Why does it keep happening? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There. That's step 3. And then step 4 is you calculate your substats. And that's just a simple, you take this number, divide it by that, you take this number, you add it to that, and that determines your speed, combat, projectile, exertion, and hit points. And you're done. Your character class will also determine what weapons and outfit you start with. But yeah, it's 4 steps, really quick. And finally, there is advanced character creation. Now, this looks a little intimidating, but if you've already played the game and you understand how the stats work, it's really not that complicated. You choose a disruption class, which I've already talked about. You choose your age, which gives you bonuses similar to disruption class. You choose your uniform, which is the outfit you're wearing. Then you choose your weapons, and you can only carry so many weapons depending on your outfit, your uniform. Like, for example, a business suit wouldn't be able to hold as much as someone wearing a backpack and full MTF gear. Choose your items, which is self-explanatory, I guess. Character info, name, age, well, not age, but name, personnel class, security level, really basic stuff on the top right of the sheet. It's name, title, which is like your character class, your age, your personnel class, your security level. Boom, you're done. Then you go on to the next phase in advanced character creation. I'm just going over this really quickly. I'll go into it in more detail in a later video. But purchase aspects, which give you skill bonuses, combat options, and anomalous abilities. Then you spend your attribute tokens, which I've already gone over, but the amount you get is determined by your disruption class and your age. You choose your weapons, and then you, again, calculate your substats, and you can spend your remaining points if you have any. And then finally, you write your backstory. So yeah, that looks a little intimidating, but it's really just 3 phases of character creation, and it allows you to create anything you can imagine. I was making characters from Metal Gear Solid 3. I think I made Thunderbolt from Metal Gear Solid 3. I was just making the most crazy characters I could think of, and you can make them. And one of the aspects you can buy basically says, ignore your whole character sheet, you're playing as this specific SCP. So yeah, you can play as an SCP. You won't get any experience, but you'll get stats and the abilities of an SCP. If you don't care about becoming overpowered, and by session 20 you're dishing 1,000 damage out, if you just want to play as an SCP and have these cool abilities, you can start off like that. So that is another... Oh, there's another thing that's different about the system is the favor system. I might be getting too deep into the mechanics if I start talking about favors and stuff. But is that everything? Let me see here. I think that's pretty much all I have to say about what makes this game different. The combat. Combat is another thing that makes this game much different than every other role-playing game. There is something called Popcorn Initiative that I have incorporated into the system at the root level. Popcorn Initiative, I didn't make up that term. It is when, after a player takes their turn in combat, they get to choose who acts next. They can choose a player, they can choose an NPC, they can choose anybody. And the way that balances out has to do with your defense, because if you act before everyone else, later on in that round, if you're attacked, your defense is lowered. And if you act after everyone else, then whoever attacked you, your defense is higher, and you get to attack anyone. If you act last in the round, it's actually a big advantage, because not only do you get to shoot someone who has low defense, but you get to decide who acts first on the second round. So let's say I acted last in the first round, I shot Joe, and Joe's got 1 hit point left. I get to choose who acts first in the next round. I choose myself. I shoot Joe again, Joe's dead. So it's an amazing system, and I'm shocked that nobody has done this before, because it works so good, and I'm excited for people to try it. It's unique, it's fun. With Popcorn Initiative, you don't have players looking at their phones and they're bored because they know they have 6 turns before they get to act. Everyone's engaged, everyone's wondering, hey, pick me next, pick me next. I want to shoot this guy. I'm in a perfect position right now. And then there's another thing called dual tech and triple tech, where if you... I'm probably going too much into this right now, but you can... Joe hasn't acted... Larry hasn't acted yet, and it's your turn. You can say, hey, Larry, do you want to act at the same time with me, and we can do a dual tech together? Kind of like in if you played Chrono Trigger, if 2 people get an action at the same time, they can do like a double attack, like a dual attack, a team attack. You can't do that with other role-playing games, because if your turn order is set, you can't like steal someone's turn who's like 4 turns down. With Popcorn Initiative, it opens up so many doors. So I'm going to stop talking now, because I've been going on a lot, and I need to split this video up. I've been talking for 36 minutes now. I need to edit this down. But that is the introduction to the basics of this role-playing game. If you're still interested, watch part 2, where I will get into the nitty-gritty. Part 2 is dice mechanics. The dice mechanics are very similar to first edition, where you roll 4 dice and you take the top 2. If one of those dice gets the highest results, such as a 6 on a d6, or an 8 on a d8, or a 10 on a d10, then you get to roll 1 die of the next highest type. So after that, you add your skill, and that is basically it. The difficulties range. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Average difficulty is 14. I think it's the same as first edition. 25 and higher is almost impossible. 7 or less is very easy. An easy way of thinking of a difficulty rating is to think of a number between 1 and 10, with 1 being the easiest and 10 being the hardest. Then add +2 and double it. You can also create a semi-random difficulty by adding 3 dice together. So let's say you tell a player to roll their perception plus awareness, and they get a 13. And you want to have it dramatic, and you can roll in front of the player's 3d8 and say, you know, this is a usually average difficulty. Whatever those 3 dice total, that was the difficulty. And if you get, it's kind of like giving the difficulty after the dice are rolled. It's a little more dramatic. You can also do automatic successes. Before I was talking about, let's say your perception had 2d10 in it. This is a representation of 2d10. Each column represents 1 die, 6, 8, 10. There's no d4s in this game. You have 2d10 here, which means you have a total of 6 things clicked on. Your perception rating would be 6. Skills usually range between like 0 and 4. Let's say you have an awareness of 2. And there is a mechanic called automatic successes. If your difficulty, the GM says, give me awareness check, difficulty 8. And you look at your sheet, and you see your perception is 6, and your awareness is 2. 6 plus 2 is 8. You can say, I automatically succeed. So you don't even have to roll dice. Critical successes and failures are the same from first edition. If you roll double your difficulty, you get a critical success. If you roll half or less than your difficulty, then you get a critical fail. And they have other things in the system, like it says if you get a critical success, this happens, yada yada yada. There's also exploding dice, which I've already mentioned. Each 6 on a d6 adds a d8. You can just read this. If you get a 20 on a d20, the die does not explode. But still, after you're done rolling all these exploding dice, you take the top 2. So if you end up getting a d20 somehow, if you get a 12 on a d12 and that d20 rolls an 18, your top 2 dice are likely 18 and 12. So you got, 30? Yeah. You can roll a 30. I mean, it's going to be rare, but it's possible. It's possible if you have 2d6, you could get a 32. And then add your skill to it. If you get multiple d12s, I guess, could you? 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, yeah, the maximum you could get with 2d6 is 32. You'd roll a 6, an 8, a 10, a 12, and a 20. That would be insane, but it's possible. Next is skills. After you take your top 2 dice, you add your skill to it. Skills have multipliers. If you have a multiplier of times 2 and your skill is 3, you got a plus 6, which is a pretty big chunk. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's a very basic RPG mechanic. Punishing rolls is another mechanic. If a GM wants a task to be especially difficult, if it's a very difficult thing to do, instead of like rolling with disadvantage like in D&D, you would have a punishing roll. And that means your dice don't explode, and you can't reroll your attribute dice. There's a mechanic in this game called Reverence, where you can get a chance to reroll. But if you're doing a punishing roll, you get 1 chance, your dice don't explode. Versus rolls, this is a pretty straightforward system. If you're rolling against another player, let's say you're rolling dexterity plus firearms versus their dexterity plus dodge, because you're trying to shoot them, that's a versus roll. Whoever gets highest wins. If you score double what they roll, then you get a critical success, they get a critical failure, and vice versa. There's also player advantage on versus rolls. Whenever a player is rolling against an NPC, the NPC's result is always determined first and told to the players. That way the players can make an educated decision as to whether or not they're going to spend reverence to reroll the dice or spend exertion to increase their dice pool. I also introduced timed rolls. The way this works is instead of the players rolling all 4 dice at once, if it's a task that requires lots of time, like you're trying to pick a lock, hack a door, or do something that takes lots of time, instead of doing a quick roll after or before, you roll 1 of your 4 dice, then 2 of your 4 dice, and 3 of your 4 dice, and you roll 1 at a time. And if you make the difficulty on 1 die or 2 die, then you succeed early, and after the 4th die, if you still haven't made it, then you fail. So it's a way of kind of elongating the skill check. Dual and triple check, I already talked about before, but I'll say it again. Um, between 2 and 3 players that haven't acted on their turn can all take their turn in unison, and it allows them to do one single action altogether. An example is, this actually came up in one of my playtests. There was a guy with a gun, and all 3 of them wanted to rush him. They didn't want to kill him because they wanted to get some information out of him. They all wanted to rush him at the same time. So they did a triple tackle, and the guy had no chance. He was down on the ground. They disarmed the gun. It's a really handy thing, and it makes sense. If 3 people are tackling one guy, that guy's not gonna. It's gonna be very difficult for him to avoid that. Let's see what's next. That's basically it for dice mechanics. I didn't mention exertion. Exertion is the same system as first edition. Your characters are going to have so many exertion points. Let's say you have 3. If you're rolling health or dexterity, any sort of physical based or willpower roll, you can spend a point of exertion, and that gives you an extra d12 to your dice pool. So instead of rolling 2d6 for dexterity right here, you can spend 2 points of exertion. You get 2d6 plus 2d12. Well, you get 2d6 and 2d12 in your dice pool, and you take the top 2. It's a basic system, and exertion can also be spent in other things in the game as well. I won't get into that now. Speed, combat, and projectile ratings. If you played first edition, it's the same thing as speed, melee, and projectile. I just renamed it to combat because I thought it was cool that it spells SCP. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. Combat multipliers increase your damage for melee attacks. Projectile increase your damage for shooting, and your speed is how many yards or meters you can move per combat every time you use a move action. A lot of this stuff is going to be kind of natural to people who played first edition, but another big point that's different from first edition is there's only 36 skills. First edition had like 3 columns of skills, and each of them had different ways of increasing them. That was a little bit... It was realistic, but it wasn't really necessary. So this system did away with that. Now you have a concise set of skills. You can also write in more skills if you want. That's pretty much it for basic dice mechanics. I think I talked about that enough. Let me get into the next part of mechanics. So, the next part I would like to talk about a little bit. I'm not going to get deep into character creation. If you want to try to make your own character, this PDF is free right now. It's always going to be free. You can go to my Discord. You can go to Twitter. You can go to Facebook. I'm giving it away. I'll probably put a link in the description so you can download this. It's unfinished. There's pages that are jumbled messes. There's chapters that are just blank. But it should be, I'm thinking it should be done by this summer. But I wanted to talk a bit about aspects, because this is something that is a carryover from Para. This is one of the reasons I made Para, because I wanted to see how this system worked. The idea is that instead of spending individual points into all these skills, which takes time, you're like, what should I buy? And you're putting 1 point here, 2 points there, you're putting all your points into firearms. Instead of doing all that, to increase your skills during character creation, you purchase aspects. There's college aspects, past experience, crime, disadvantages, unique skills, power gamer, combat, mental, and anomalous aspects. And depending on your disruption class and your age. And now aspects are only purchasable with advanced character creation. But with advanced character creation, you choose these two things. You choose your disruption class and your age, and those will determine your power, talent, and history points. And you use those 3 points to purchase aspects. Now there's a ton of different aspects. We'll make it simple and we'll go to the first one, actor. Now each aspect will have a little SCP icon that tells you how much it costs. Now this cost will have a number in black on white and 1 or 2 numbers in white on gray. Now this number is the suggested cost because it is most cost efficient to purchase that aspect. History points are best at purchasing aspects that give you additional skills. Talent points are better at purchasing aspects that give you special abilities, and power points are most cost effective when purchasing really powerful aspects and anomalous aspects. So let's go to actor, for example. You spend 12 history points and you get +1 to animal ken, athletics, break free, creativity, intimidate, psychology, self-control, and vehicles, and you get a +2 to deceive, disguise, and persuade. So you spend 12 history points, you fill in those skills. Now it says here, if both costs are spent to purchase this aspect, increase all above skill multipliers by 1. So instead of just having a +2 to deceive, you would have a +2 to deceive and an increase to your multiplier. So instead of having a +2 to your skill, it's effectively a +4, because 2 times 2 is 4. And this carries over if you purchase additional aspects. Let's see if I can find it. Here's one, advertising. Let's say you got both actor and advertising, and you spent both costs. You spent 17 and 12, you spent 8 and 11. Creativity is here, and creativity is also here. So your multiplier would go from a 2 to a 3. So your creativity would be level 2 because it gets +1 here and a +1 here. But it would also get a ×3 multiplier. So you'd be adding 6 to creativity. Persuade, even better. You get a +2 to persuade and a +3 to persuade. But you would also get a ×2 multiplier, and then it would become a ×3 multiplier. So your persuade would be 5 times 3. So if you were an actor and you went to college for advertising, you would get a +15 to persuade. So it's expensive. That would be a total of 28 talent points and 20 history points, which, it's expensive, but a +15 persuade is insane. So I mean, like in first edition, a +5 was like extremely high, and this is triple that. So yeah, you can purchase these aspects, and you don't have to purchase this with 12 history points. If you had 6 history points left and you had like 23 talent points and you really wanted to buy actor, you can spend 17 talent points to buy actor as well. And that's just the college-based. These are all skill-based aspects. That's not even getting into the next section. These are all things that give you skill bonuses, crime, skill bonuses. There's also disadvantages you can take to give you more points. For example, if you're hunted by someone, you can get 4 talent points and 6 history points. You can be insane, you can be an outlaw, you can be short, you can be ugly/creepy, which is like an appearance thing, carryover from first edition. Lots of different disadvantages you can take to get more points. Then there's unique skill aspects. Now you can see here these have 3 different point values for the icon. You can spend power points to buy these. Power points are the most valuable point in the game, So most of these are going to be like, it's going to be really cheap. Like martial artist only costs 3 power points. And this gives you martial arts. It's a written in skill, so you would actually type in martial arts down here. And then you would get +2 to that skill. Just going to type that in here. And let's see what this does. Martial arts can be rolled instead of melee when attacking unarmed. When attacking unarmed, your damage dice explode. Or, okay, so this is for each additional cost. So let's say I just spent 3 power points to buy martial artist. Now if I want to spend 8 talent points as well, I get to choose one of these. I can choose when attacking unarmed, my damage dice explode, which is awesome. Or, when attacking unarmed, increase your damage dice type by 1. D8s become D10s, D12s become D20s, etc. And if I spent all 3, I spent 15, 8, and 3, then I could choose both of these. So, if I'm attacking unarmed, my dice all go up by 1 level, and my dice explode. So, 4d10 becomes 4d12, and then if those 12s explode, you get a d20. So martial artists would be really good. If you spend all 3 points. Then there's other things like musician. You get a musical instrument talent. These are really cheap. But there's lots and lots of things to buy. These are power gamer aspects. This might be the power gamer's favorite section. For every power point you spend, reduce your damage by 1. You can purchase this aspect multiple times. So let me just show you why that's insane. Let's say you wanted to make a character that was extremely resilient to damage, and that's all you wanted. So you go and you choose an Amida class. Let me go down to that. I want to be a Amida class. I get 30 power points. And then I'm going to go spend 100% of those points. I spent 30 points into damage resistance. I don't have any more power points left, but I reduce all damage I take by 30. You're going to be like made of rock, basically. That's a lot of damage resistance. You can also get extra speed. There's other aspects here. Fast progress. You fill in 15 die bumpers. I didn't get into die bumpers. I'll briefly touch on that. Some of these dice have little circles underneath them, as you can see. All that means is if I purchase that die, then I purchase this die. This one's got a little circle in between them. In order to purchase this, I have to spend another point into that before I can go to that. In other words, upgrading this D8 to a D10 costs 2 points instead of 1. That's it. But there's an aspect you can buy called Fast Progress. You spend 8 power points, and you get to fill in 15 of these little circles, so you essentially skip having to buy them again. Melee Master, there's Tank, you can increase your hit points. Getting a lot into these, but I guess my point is there's lots of aspects you can buy. And then there's the big one. Let's see if I can find it. These are anomalous aspects. These are aspects that make your character anomalous. You can start off as a cat. You can enhance your attributes so you're super strong or super healthy. You can have an elemental blast that you shoot out. You can have extra arms. You can see things that you shouldn't be able to see. You can get rid of aging. You can be immune to mimetic and cognito hazards. You can be extremely fast. Let's say you spent 30 points into fast. Well, you would be like a plus 15 to your speed. It's ridiculous. Floating Blades is one where you can pick up objects. And if you ever played Control, the video game, she has an ability where she can pick up like concrete off the ground and use it for defense, or she can project it. and cause damage. It's exactly what this is. Grow Blade lets you turn your entire arm into a sword if you want to. Healing gives you like Wolverine type healing. You can become invisible. You can have an invisible friend. There's lots of things that you can purchase, and there's going to be a whole expansion that is just nothing but anomalous aspects. But the big one I wanted to show you is this one right here. If you choose a meta class, you'll get 30 power points. Then you can play as an SCP. You basically take your character sheet, throw it away, and you pick a SCP that you want to play as, and you take the stats for that SCP. Now you're playing as that. Now, because you're a meta class, that's the only way to get 30 power points. Because you're playing a meta, you won't get any improvement. Choose any SCP that there's stats for, and say, this is my character. I want to play as SCP 049 or whatever. You can actually play as that character. You're not going to get any experience each session because of the way the disruption classes work. But if you don't care about having all this improvement every session, then you can play as an SCP. You can own an SCP object. You can spend 3 power points and you'll get 1 anomalous object point, and then you can use those to purchase to gain access to an SCP object permanently. Then there's fun ones like Metagamer. You basically become Deadpool. Your character's allowed to metagame. Combat Freak, you get 3 combat actions each turn instead of 2. You can play as a Type Green. It's a reality bender. Type Red, which is a character that basically can't die. Then I have things like Keter Potential, which allows you to buy more aspects as you level up. One Punch Guy. There's a lot of things that you can buy with aspects. You can customize your character to a ridiculous level. And I think that is enough about aspects, because I've been talking about them for a while. Let me stop the video here, and then I'll go on to the next section. Into the deep stuff. Combat has been simplified. Combat has been simplified in 2nd edition, while also it's been expanded yet simplified. That's like what I'm doing with this whole game, is expanding the options, expanding the customization, but simplifying in a way that keeps the game at its core. I can't explain it, but it's better. I'm going to briefly go over again about the Popcorn Initiative. I know I mentioned it in a previous video, but Popcorn Initiative basically is after a player takes their turn in combat, they get to choose who goes next. So all you have to determine as a GM is who is the very first person to take an action in combat. If it's an ambush, then obviously the person ambushing is going to be the first person to act. And then after that, the player or NPC chooses who goes next. If it's like an enemy NPC, they try to choose someone that's gonna, harm the PCs. If it's an allied NPC, then the GM will try to help the players and choose a character that's beneficial to the party. Now, why wouldn't all the PCs just want to go at the beginning and let the NPCs act last? That's because if you act before your opponents, you act before characters in a turn, your defense is lower if they're trying to attack you later on, unless you spend exertion. So if you have a bunch of exertion, then it doesn't matter. If someone attacks you, you can dodge. Otherwise, it goes against your reaction score, which is kind of like your DC in D&D, or if you played first edition, it's your reaction defense. It's like a baseline to hit number for your character, but it's a little bit lower than if you got to roll your dexterity and your dodge. Then there's a mechanic called Stagger. I'm just going to read this. If you score a critical success when attacking your opponent, they become staggered unless they roll health plus poise with a difficulty equal to the damage dealt. So I just got a critical success against Larry. I shot him with my gun. I did 16 damage. Now he has to roll health plus poise. He rolls it, he gets a 10. He spends some reverence, he tries to, roll it again. He gets a 9. Sorry, Larry, you are now staggered. Characters remain staggered until they take a turn. So if Larry hasn't acted yet, then you're going to try to, coordinate it so that he doesn't get a turn. He doesn't get his turn, and let other people try to, hit Larry before he gets unstaggered. As soon as Larry takes a turn, he's no longer staggered. He doesn't have to spend any actions or exertion. He's just no longer staggered as soon as he takes his turn. Now, how you can exploit this, let's say combat starts, Larry punches you in the face. Then you shoot him in the knees. He becomes staggered. And the combat round has just started and he's staggered now. Now you can have all your allies attack him while he's staggered because he can't dodge. And his defense is lowered by quite a bit. Now at the end of the round where he's staggered, if you have one of your allies choose who goes last, they get to choose who acts first the next round. They can have all your allies keep dogpiling Larry, and he's going to be toast, basically. Now, if Larry's got an ally, eventually that ally is going to say, alright, it's Larry's turn, he's no longer going to be staggered. So it's another layer that adds on to the strategy behind Popcorn Initiative. Now, what makes being staggered so devastating is that since your defense is lowered to such a degree, it's like almost half of your reaction defense. You have a stagger rating basically on the sheet. Go to that quick. Stagger is listed on your sheet. It is your fate rating plus poise, which is typically a lot less than your dexterity plus dodge. Now, let's say you have a stagger rating of 3, something crazy like that. Everyone's going to have a difficulty 3 to hit you. They're going to be constantly hitting you. If you get hit with a melee attack, the damage is doubled. And with firearms, if you're shooting somebody with a really low defense, you can do what's called a called shot. And one of the options for called shots is dealing double damage. Now, I just kind of quickly scrolled by the 9 combat actions. Now, in first edition, combat actions took up like 4 or 5 pages, and they each had like way too many rules associated with them. That's all been simplified and condensed. It's essentially the same thing, but now there are 9 combat actions that fit on 1 page. Move. You move a number of units, yards, meters equal to your speed rating. Simple as that. And like I said, you get 2 of these per turn. You can use an item /reload, which is reloading a gun, not dropping a weapon, but like basically if you have like let me see here some examples. You can use a radio, use a fire extinguisher, just a general use item action. Just carry over from first edition. Defense, if you are worried about getting attacked later on in the round, you can reserve one of your actions for defense, and that means that even if you are attacked later on in the round, it's treated as if you haven't taken an action yet, and you get to roll dexterity plus dodge as normal. Melee attack, straightforward. If you're close enough to someone, you can hit them with a knife or sword or punch them. And another cool thing about melee attack is if they're staggered, you deal double damage. Fire is specific to weapons. In first edition, I had stats your skills were like handgun, automatics, rifle. Now it's just firearms. There's just one skill for every shooting weapon. And you roll perception plus firearms to shoot against your opponent. And if you hit, you deal the damage to your gun. There's also some other things to help calculate your to hit, such as the weapon's range, the accuracy of the gun. I won't get into that, but straightforward. In first edition, there was a stance thing. You could be aiming from the hip, you can be ready, or you can be aiming. Now, with this system, it's essentially the same thing, but it's been reduced to just an aim action. And every gun will have a bonus you get if you aim. So if you're shooting a gun, but you keep missing, you can take an action to aim, and then you get a bonus to hit. Simple, effective. That's the way it works now. You can also disarm somebody. Rules for trying to get a gun away from somebody or a knife. You can tackle them and restrain. These were both wrestle actions in first edition, but they have rules that explain how to restrain someone so they can't act, but neither can you. Or you can tackle someone to the ground and try to knock them over. Now, each one of these actions has special nuances to them. I already mentioned called shots earlier. There's also rules for dual-wielding guns or dual-wielding swords called akimbo. Dual and triple tech. It's just a little blurb talking about how that works in combat. Special melee attack rules is introduced attacks of opportunity, which is a system I totally made up and didn't steal from any other role-playing game. Whereas if a character is right next to you and they walk away, you get a free attack of opportunity, and there's ways of getting around it so you don't get attacked. But that's a rule added. Momentum attacks is if you are running up to somebody and then you attack them with a baseball bat, you get a bonus to your damage based off of how fast you ran up to them. I have a little blurb about unarmed attack damage. If you're hitting somebody with your fists, it just tells you how much damage you deal. Overwatch is a new action. A friend of mine on my Discord suggested it. I think he said it was in Delta Green, which I haven't played. I know it's good. I want to play it someday. I just haven't found anyone who runs it. But Overwatch is you basically choose like a 45-degree cone of view. You get your gun ready. If anybody walks into that 45-degree cone, you can stop combat immediately and say, I'm shooting this person right now, and it allows you to kind of like basically cover a spot. If someone's peeking around a corner, you fire. If someone's running past real quick, you can interrupt their movement and fire. Kneecap is specific to firearms. It allows you to specifically try to stagger someone. So if you're not trying to deal damage, but you want to put them off balance, you can aim for the kneecaps. Standard rules about shooting past an ally. If there's a crowd of people and you're trying to hit a certain one, there's rules for that. Spray and pray. If there's a crowd of zombies and you have an automatic weapon or a flamethrower, you can spray down the entire crowd. Then there's other. I'm starting to get into the deep mechanics. I will say about recovery options though, it's been simplified way more than first edition. The way death works is if you have negative hit points, you do a health plus resist death roll with a difficulty equal to twice the amount of negative hit points you have. And if you fail that roll, you're dead. First edition also had something called mutilations, and that is carried over to this system as well, but instead of having a deck of cards, which wasn't really necessary, you just roll a d12 now, and the higher you get on the d12, the more severe the mutilation, and depending on the type of damage you're receiving, of these 8 different damage types. There's blunt, cutting, bullet / piercing, fire, electricity, explosions, acid, and cold. Depending on what type of damage element you're getting hurt by, that will determine what type of mutilation you get. I'll just do one example quick. Let's say you take acid damage and you got mutilated. If you're about to take lethal damage from an attack, you have to take a mutilation. Instead of going into negative, you automatically get at least 1 mutilation. Usually mutilations reduce your damage, but sometimes they can just outright kill you. But let's just say acid and you roll high, you get like an 11. So you go down to the 11, and as you can see, the little acid icon is here. If it wasn't, like if it had, let's say I got a 10, little acid icon has an arrow going down, so that means you go to the next one over, which would be 11. Right here, if I rolled a 9, I would actually go to 8 instead. I mean, if you read it, it'll make sense. But basically, you roll d12, you find your icon. Acid here says you get limb loss. You took critical damage from acid. You're going to lose an arm. You're going to lose a leg. You might lose your head. I'll do one more example quick. Let's say you have a blunt and you only roll a 1. 1 says, okay, go down 1 because you're not going to get a scar from blunt, but you could get winded. The attack deals 0 damage. Your character has the wind knocked out of them, and then you get a penalty. You can't take actions unless you spend exertions because you're kind of, you hit me in the gut with a baseball bat. I didn't take any physical damage, but I'm winded. So that's mutilations. It's straightforward. And yeah, that's the basics of combat. The next chapter is GM stuff. So I think I'm going to stop for the night. I've been talking about this a lot, and there's so much to talk about. And I haven't even gotten into the SCP universe stuff yet. Maybe I should do one more video, but there's a lot of stuff talking about the SCP universe. I love mechanics, which is why I've been making all these role-playing games for so long, and I wanted to make one for the SCP universe, and I think this one fits it perfectly. I have all these different chapters talking about how the Foundation works, how humans work, cognitohazards. I get into how weird you want your game to be, how many characters are allowed to have anomalous aspects. There's also something called a weirdness level. That's how common anomalies are in your universe. Because the game doesn't stick to one canon. It doesn't say you have to have the Foundation be this global organization. This role-playing game lets you choose how your game runs. Let me give you a quick example, and then I'm going to be done. But plus my voice is going. Unusual phenomenon scale, that's what it's called. This is how prominent the SCP Foundation is in your campaign. Unfounded is like there's no Foundation at all. You play as civilians. Small Foundation, medium, global. Global Foundation is like standard on the SCP Wiki, where the SCP Foundation has sites all over the world. And then it goes even further. You can play a Broken Masquerade. You can play Anomalous Country. You can play Vanguard. These are all SCP canon universes, and it talks about how you would incorporate them and to what degree. But I'm losing my voice, so I think that's enough talking. I'm going to end the stream now, and what else was I? Yeah, the GM section and things to come are the last things I need to talk about, but maybe I'll do those some other time. So that is me talking about SCP, the tabletop role-playing game. I have totally lost my voice now. Alright. I'm going to end the stream now. And the YouTube video. I'm probably going to edit this later. Maybe won't. I don't know. But, Zombie Mouse out. Again, this is coming out summer of this year, most likely. I've got 18 things to do before the book is released. Maybe I'll just mention those quick. See, I won't shut up about this. I have a list of 18 things to do. I'm not going to get into it. Also, here's my new logo. 26 Letter Publishing has a new logo. Extra, extra. Alright. Talking too much. I'm going to go. Hope you watched it. If you did, leave a like. If you got to the end, type in the comments, fucking, I don't know, Zombie Mouse sucks. And then say, what a loser. Alright. Thanks. Goodbye.